another episode of Inside Leisure World. My name is Mary Apte, and I'm the host today for this episode. The theme today is going to be passionate pursuits, kind of influenced by the Oscars and the Olympics. Some of us have, in Leisure World, most everybody has had some sort of a pursuit where they have put a little extra effort beyond the normal to get an experience that they are passionate about. And so I started out in life story writing, and I have a whole stack of books here, and each one of these individuals who wrote a book had not just one, but maybe several in their 100 years that they were here. So passionate pursuits are all around us. Today my guest is Dr. Nagendra Reddy. I might not have pronounced that exactly right, but
Yes.
I did a good job, good. And behind us we have a map of India. And the passionate pursuits, however, that this man, Ken, has had are in a love of art and beauty and color, I believe, but music and art. And so that's the theme that we're going to talk about. Ken is from, 50 years ago, came from India. And just to mention a bit about India, 1/4 of the people of the world live in India, yet it is 3.3% of the space on Earth where people can live, the Earth, the surface. So you can think about that while we pursue the art a little bit and music. So tell us about your background a little bit.
Well, by profession, I'm a scientist. I came to this country about 50 years ago to study science and do research. And I finally ended up as a faculty member at USC School of Medicine. And then I retired and I came to Leisure World. After retirement, I shifted my interest from science to art, and art in any form, but basically it is music and paintings and sculptures, things like that. And especially as far as music is concerned, my interest is very wide. It's international. I like international music from all countries of the world. Although I don't understand the words, I still enjoy the music because you can pay attention to the rhythm and the sound and the change of the pitch of the music and still enjoy the international music. So that's why I began liking the music. Art, I learned by myself by studying a lot of books, and then I began going to the museums. And luckily in Los Angeles we have wonderful museums. One of them, of course, is the Getty Museum, world famous. Have a lot of artifacts from all over the world, paintings. And then the Los Angeles of Art. That has one of the biggest Asian art collections. So if you want to look at Asian artifacts, you can go to Los Angeles County Museum. And then we have the Norton Simon Museum, which is a smaller one, but they have, again, one of the best Far Eastern art collections by a private collector, of course, who is Norton Simon. So that's how I ended up with my interest away from science into art.
Well, I've had a couple of encounters with you. You've been a resident here in Leisure World for a long time, and I remember you made a slideshow to emphasize the beauty and color and drama of a celebration, an Indian celebration, and it was the celebration of your son's wedding. And we went to the Mary Wilson Library downtown, and we were really, taken to India, so to speak. It took place at a temple that's in Malibu, I believe.
Yes.
Which is an Indian temple. You wouldn't have known you weren't right in India, with the women all dressed in their very colorful dress, the saris and so forth, and it was a wonderful experience. And your enthusiasm, your passion for what you were doing just swept us away. And so I knew that you probably had some sprints, maybe not a marathon, but pursuits that, last. Now the one for music and art is probably a marathon, right? You've been enthusiastic a long while about those things.
Yes.
So, so you became a volunteer eventually, and you had some experiences that you recounted to me enthusiastically in a conversation, and I thought, well, let's share those.
Well, yes.
Started out with music, right?
Yes. I became a volunteer for the first Rachmaninoff International Piano Competition, which was to take care of the competitors, make arrangements for the catering of the food and drinks and things like that for the participants. And also I was assigned to drive back and forth one particular competitor. The competitors were housed in private houses as guests. So each of us volunteers were assigned one competitor to pick them up, bring them to the Norton Sound Museum, take them back. The competitions were held between 5 p.m. and 11 p.m., which means the museum was closed by that time. So there was nobody else and only the competitors and of course the judges. It's a wonderful competition. The judges were of international reputation. I can tell one or two names. One of the judges was Earl Wild. He had played for 6 presidents, and he was recording piano music even when he was aged 95 years. Another judge was Byron Janice, who was again a famous American pianist, and he was married to the daughter of the movie star Gary Cooper.
Drop the mic.
And Byron Janice had recorded some of the interesting pieces of piano music in Moscow, which was an interesting experience for him. So as the competition was going on inside the auditorium, we volunteers were staying outside, and so what I did was I wandered around the museum all by myself. It's a unique experience and unique opportunity. I can tell you very few people will have that opportunity to have the famous Norton Simon Museum all to yourself. Nobody to look over your shoulder, nobody in front of you, You are right in front of the painting or the sculpture. You can look at it, gaze at it.
And this went on for 2 weeks, right?
Yes,
Oh my
competition went on for 2 weeks. So I had all that time. So whenever I had free time from the competition, I used to go to various galleries and take a look at the paintings and sculptures and things like that. So that was a bonus for me for having volunteered my time to the competition, which I enjoyed very much. The other opportunity that I had was to talk with the judges. Some of the judges used to come out of the competition to take a break for 5 or 10 minutes, and me being outside, I used to just say hello to them and started talking with them. So I got to know them quite well, their background and their experiences in life, and all while impressed me as one of the most humane person. He had a wonderful sense of humor, and he was passionate about music, and he was very enthusiastic about the competition and helping the young competitors to get on in their musical world. So one of the things about Norton Simon Museum is that there's an anecdote concerning India and Norton Simon Museum. In the museum, they had a sculpture called Shiva, is a god, and this sculpture is a bronze statue from the 10th century coming from South India. Norton Simon was first of all not interested in Eastern art, especially Indian art. He was married to the movie star Jennifer Jones, and Jennifer Jones was passionate about India and Indian culture, yoga, art and literature, things like that. So she persuaded Norton Simon to come with her for honeymoon in India. So while they were on honeymoon in Delhi, Norton Simon used to go into the street and happened to come across galleries which were showing art pieces. So the first thing he saw was a fabulous chess set completely carved with ivory. All the pieces are ivory, the whole board is ivory. So he bought it, and that made him start appreciating Indian artifacts. And so he began collecting, and he had amassed a wonderful amount of sculptures from India. Later on, in about 1973, he purchased one sculpture, a bronze statue called Shiva, from an art dealer in New York, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York were featuring a show on Indian art, and they asked Norton Simon to lend the Shiva sculpture for display. He agreed, and it was displayed in New York, and that was when the Indian government found that there is a Shiva statue belonging to Norton Simon. So they went back, and I'll now tell the anecdote about that particular statue. It came from a temple in southern India. The temple authorities wanted to have it renovated, so they sent it to an art restorer in Bombay. What that restorer did was, he duplicated the statue of Shiva, faked it, gave the fake to this temple kept the real Shiva statue with him. Later on sold it to a Bombay collector, who then sold it to a New York art dealer, who then sold it to Norton Simon. So in around 1965, the British Museum, one of the experts in Asian sculpture, he declared that the statue in India, in the temple, is a fake. But then nobody knew where the real statue was until the government saw it being displayed in New York Metropolitan Museum of Art. They told them, look, this is ours, it has to come back to us. It was exported under false documentation. They did not have real documents and export permit, so it has to be given back. And Norton Simon refused. So the Indian government took him to court. They sued in New York. And before the case was about to go to court, they settled out of court. And the settlement was, yes, Norton Simon agreed that it was a fake and he is prepared to give the original back. And but he said, I would like to keep the statue with me for 10 years on display at Norton Simon Museum, after which I will return it to India. And also, for 1 year, Norton Simon is allowed to purchase any artifacts in India and get permits for bringing them back to his museum. So Indian government agreed for that one. So finally, after 10 years, the statue returned back to India. A similar thing happened recently. The Australian Prime Minister personally brought another bronze statue from southern India, which was in Australian Museum. Again, it's a bronze statue of Shiva, and it was costing $5.6 million. He personally brought that one and also a stone statue and gave it to the Indian Prime Minister in person. The two pieces were so heavy that he could not accommodate it in his plane, so he chartered a jumbo 747 to bring the statues and to be given to the Prime Minister of India. So there are incidents like this in art museums where they have pieces which have been obtained under false pretenses, and after this many of the owners around the world realized, hey, we should get back some of the items. So they started identifying what pieces are there in the museums which might have been obtained under false documentation. And so far, almost 7,200 items from American museums have been returned to their original countries, including paintings, sculptures, other artifacts. So this is an ongoing thing. And they arrested the guy who sold the statue in New York, and the guy who exported falsely from Bombay. And this kind of thing is also in collusion with the auction houses. Famous auction houses like Christie's, they turn a blind eye. They are not interested in checking whether this came with authenticated paperwork, and they auction it. Of course, like I said, some of these pieces go for $5 million.
So
But then,
the idea of returning them to the country of origin would be partly that young people or people there can reflect on their own heritage.
Yes, they want to preserve their heritage and show to the people of the country how rich the culture was and how these artifacts are their heritage and should be kept for them. One interesting item about this bronze sculpture, especially Shiva, is solid bronze. Western bronze sculpture pieces are hollow inside. The Indian Shiva and other ones, they are cast in solid, and they used what is known as a wax technique, which is now lost. So nobody now knows how to duplicate casting solid bronze pieces. So there's another reason why these
Unique.
bronze pieces are very valuable, because you can't duplicate this anymore. So that is my contact with Northern Simon Museum and the interest in the Shiva story.
When you were wandering around in the museum, could you hear the competitors? Could you hear the music?
No.
Oh.
No. Only if you go
Yeah,
to
close.
the door.
Yeah.
Of course, in the beginning, I used to stay for 1 or 2 performances. You see, the competition is in such a way that each performer has to perform the same number of pieces, so they repeat it. So if I hear one person play, that's enough for me, because my knowledge of classical music is not that great. So I used to come out and then spend my time in the
Now, you told me that in some cases you were able to pick the best one.
Yes. Having listening to these pieces day after day, I could distinguish who is playing much better than the other person. Just because they are playing the same piece, but by listening you can tell who is better. And sometimes I used to in a way bet with my other volunteers who is going to win.
Okay. Well, it was in the San Francisco Asian Art Museum that you spotted something about a statue, one of these bronzes, that really turned you on, and that was your own language.
Yes, that's another interesting story. I was visiting the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. They also had a decent collection of Asian art and sculptures. Of course, that's why they call it the Asian Art Museum. And as I was wandering around, I saw a statue, and I went nearby. I could see even from a distance, of course, that it is from India, and it is a statue of Shiva with his wife and his child. So I went very close to the statue, and lo and behold, at the bottom of the statue, there was some writing. So I looked at the writing, and to my surprise, that script was in my native language. When you go to museums anywhere around the world, there are pieces from Mesopotamia, from Egypt, from various parts of the world. Of course, they'll be inscribed with their native languages. I always used to feel, gee, I wish I could read what they're saying, some of the stones. But here is this piece of sculpture which I could read and understand, and more than anything else, it was from the part where I come from. The sculpture was made for a temple very close to where I come from, and the inscription said the name of the person, the donor, the name of the donor's father, the name of the donor's grandfather. So that was a very exciting incident for me to discover that here is a statue straight from my native area.
So do you think that this was a good person to bring in for passionate pursuits and passion? Ken, Reddy, you have, outdone the passion and the enthusiasm for art and music and volunteerism. That was a good one to throw in too. And we're about to end our episode, Inside Leisure World. And I'm here to tell you there are so many people who have, behind a facade of calm and quiet, some real enthusiasm that they have pursued sometime during their many years. And so I hope that I'll be able to open up a few other passionate pursuers and find more about them. And thank you very much for sharing so much of that with us and with me. And thank you for being a guest on Inside Leisure World, which is the Video Producers program.
Thank you, Mary. I really enjoyed talking to you and tell some of my experiences and also let the Leisure World people know about the existence of these wonderful museums in our own backyard.
Right. I also am aware, I haven't been to the Los Angeles County Museum, but I have been to some of those in the Washington, D.C. area. I just wanted to say also that you were at one time a video producer yourself and part of our club here. And thank you for your time that you worked with us with the, being a camera person, carrying stuff back and forth, and taking the certification at downtown at Seal Beach to be.
Yes, I enjoyed being a member of the Leisure World Video Producers Club. I enjoyed being behind the lens, and today I have the opportunity of being in front of the lens.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.